Well, Christie back in New Hampshire today, that after making a quick visit to New Jersey to deal with a recent storm. Now, the governor, as you know, took some heat for nearly staying on the campaign trail instead of returning home. Christie, he is banking on a strong showing in New Hampshire to stay and validate his place in the race, and he is showing a lot of signature confidence and swagger. A brand new book called American Governor. It provides an inside look at how he not only got to where he is, but also explains the kind of politician that he is right now. The author of that book, Matt Katz, is kind enough to join us. Matt, thanks for a few minutes. I appreciate it.
Sure thing, Richard.
You know, for folks who remember that press conference just a few months after the election when Christie won going away, and people were starting to press him on the issue about Bridgegate and what happened, he said, yeah, I moved the cones, Matt. You were that Matt here. Did you have any idea, just a few months removed from the election, when he blew it off so casually, that in so many ways that this story would not only come to define where he is in his now current term, but also potentially derail what looked to be a very plausible presidential candidacy?
No, I had no idea. He had been Teflon for 4 years in his first term as governor. There were various controversies that popped up here and there, brought up by the New Jersey press corps, and here was this mysterious lane closure. It was weird. It caused a 5-day traffic jam. There was chatter about it. There were a couple of legislative hearings, but he was so defiantly sarcastic in blowing off my question that it was quite convincing. And I just kind of figured that this was one of those things that would blow over. But we had no idea that just a month after I asked that question, we would get this smoking gun email indicating that his deputy chief of staff, in fact, was the one who allegedly, or at least had an email that seemed to order this traffic jam.
These weren't two peons. When you talk about Wildstein was his appointee to the Port Authority and Bridgegate, his right-hand person. From what you investigated, and you've covered him for more than 5 years now, what is the basic conclusion that you read? Even if there's not a smoking gun, you in your book articulate that during the whole process, he did talk to some people that were involved with the lane closures. Do you have any comfort level in saying he had to know something?
My conclusion was I found no evidence that he knew beforehand, and I find him too smart of a politician to have approved such a wild and ridiculous scheme. However, we have a photograph indicating that he spoke to one of the now admitted conspirators, David Wildstein, who has pleaded guilty to the scheme. Christie had a conversation with him while the lanes were closed at a September 11th ceremony at Ground Zero. They were chatting, they were laughing. Christie says he doesn't remember what they were talking about, but obviously that's a piece of evidence that, you know, is suspicious. And then what I really, though, examined is the aftermath. 4 months passed between the time the traffic jams happened and the time that, thanks to dogged press reports and Democratic legislature, which had subpoena power, that we got the smoking gun email. And the question that I really tried to examine is why Christie and his people didn't try to figure out what really happened if they didn't know. Why they didn't follow up on all the leads that they had if, as he argues, he never knew anything about it. Why didn't he try to suss out that a crime had taken place?
He's a contradiction in a lot of ways here. It's funny, I think maybe the high moment for him so far in this presidential campaign is where he's talked, I think with great compassion, about people close to him that have struggled with addictions and have even died. But at the same end, so many times, through both this first and that second term, you see him playing the bully act with the teacher at one of the town halls, with going after the guy, on the boardwalk with the ice cream, etc. Is he mugging for the cameras, or is that just his DNA?
I think it is his DNA, but I think it's actually more multifaceted than it seems. I think there is the Christie who flies off the handle. Obviously, we've seen it so many times, but I think he's actually kind of just an emotional human being. And there's another Christie who I saw after Superstorm Sandy, who cried with victims of that storm on the Jersey Shore. There's the Chris Christie, who I revealed in the book, who goes to and went to marriage counseling with his wife to talk about his feelings. So I think he's got a wide variety of personalities, and they're all sort of authentic. It's just that he's all just kind of like full of life and emotion, and you get all of it with him.
Well, to that end, that word authentic, Matt, I've argued with a lot of people who want to dismiss Christie. I say do so at your own peril, because he's as talented a politician as I remember because of the authenticity. But the presidential candidate, I can't figure out who he's trying to be in that, you know, whether people liked it or not. He defended when he put his arms around Obama when he came to the Jersey Shore, and the New Jersey electorate liked what he had to do because he was doing it in part here to help them. Now you see a guy who says, yeah, I'm against any kinds of gun control. He supported an assault weapon ban. He campaigned on it. He was a pro-choice candidate. Now he's pro-life across the board. I can go along a lot of issues that say he sounds as hypocritical as the rest of them. That was the whole calling card of authenticity. It seems to be only when it's convenient.
He's got a lot of ideological problems here in terms of consistency. There's no question about it. Part of me wonders, I mean, and you know, I write in the book about his ambition, and he really wants to be president. And the book is also about sort of the making of a modern-day American political candidate. And part of me wonders if it's possible to be ideologically pure in this day and age. If he wanted to win election in a blue state like New Jersey, which he did, he had to, you know, not highlight or maybe disavow some conservative positions. So he first came to office, as you said, as an anti-gun, pro-choice candidate. And as governor, his first term, he said he stood by New Jersey's gun laws. The night before he announced his candidacy, he made moves via executive action to loosen New Jersey's gun laws. And maybe that's just what he had to do in order to have any hopes of winning in a Republican primary.
And finally, Matt, just again, I'll say to anybody who's a critic, and I understand why they are, do not call this guy dumb, because in terms of political instincts, he usually, let's go before Bridgegate, was spot on. And he knows better than anybody the credibility he got in the aftermath of Sandy, being ever present and everything else. So why in the God's name did it take him 3 or 4 tries till he finally figured to say he was coming back? When he was first asked if in New Hampshire if he was coming back when the storm was bearing down on Jersey, he said, what am I going to do, work the plow? It's so politically tone deaf. Sure, he changed course the next day after getting heat for it, but that he never would have done that in his first term, even if he was a candidate. I don't know if he's getting bad advice or what, but right then and there, I'm like, this is not the same guy.
I think he was thinking about the fact that his whole candidacy is riding on New Hampshire. And his whole New Hampshire strategy is getting in front of as many people as possible. And he realized that if I'm out of the state for a weekend, I'm not getting in front of 400, 500, 600 people in New Hampshire. That could be 100 votes. And that's what he's concentrating on. His whole political future rides on the next 2 weeks leading up to the New Hampshire primary. And he, in his defense on this, was that the forecast got a lot worse, and he wasn't going to make any decision about going home before he knew he had to. I think he made the best of it, though, because when he was home, he kept doing national TV interviews that were ostensibly about storm response, but he was able to parlay those interviews and move those interviews into campaign talk and attack Marco Rubio here and there.
I could keep going on. It's a really fascinating read. If you want to know what happens behind the scenes leading up not only to Bridgegate, but also what made Chris Christie right now, and maybe there will be, if not a third, even a fourth act for the guy. Check out the book, American Governor, by Matt Katz. Matt, I really appreciate it for you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate it, Richard.
So, do you think Christie's downfall was either inevitable because in the end, he's in a blue state. He took positions about gun control, to a degree, not so much same-sex marriage, but certainly choice, and he put the arm around the president during Sandy? Or do we ascribe it all to Bridgegate?
I think it was inevitable given the timing. I think he would have been a much better candidate in 2012. And he didn't want to run because he thought that Obama was unbeatable. And he might have been right in the long run. But this is before Bridgegate. This is before the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th credit downgrades in the state of New Jersey, before voter frustration was that huge. And that would have worked against him, I think, on the campaign trail. And I think at some point his personality would have begun to work against him, too. So I think it was at some point inevitable, which is why, sort of like Obama, the earlier you can run for the White House, the better it is, because there's less of a record for you to be based on.
Also, the vibe at the time, to Andrew's point, I think he's right, was people trying to draft him in because they weren't sold on Romney, and they were trying to get him in originally as a vice president, but then all of a sudden they're like, you know what? We like this guy more. You know, he'll say anything and whatever, and foreshadowing maybe of 4 years later. But maybe we're throwing dirt on this thing too quick. He apparently has made his last stand, if you will, even though I haven't had the first primary, but he's really betting hard on New Hampshire, and he's doing better. Is third place kind of the minimum he has to do to justify going forward, or do you think no matter what, he'll be there Super Tuesday?
You know, it's almost like his last stand, and I think that third or fourth place is probably what he has to get just to get the money and the name recognition and the poll numbers to keep going. Because you think about Chris Christie, where does he resonate and sell after New Hampshire? I mean, you're hard pressed to see a path forward for him. So I think, you know, I think he has to do pretty well in New Hampshire to move forward. And to Andrew's point, I think Andrew is so right about that. What a sad commentary on our political system that you need to run early without a record, because if you wait and you actually work your way up and you have a record, you can't win. I mean, it's a really sad commentary because we now want people who, like many people say about Obama, are unprepared to take the office, and that is a real problem.
You know, I remember, and I'll still stand by it, the political talents that he had, especially in his first term. And you don't get elected in a blue state as a Republican governor, insulting all the people you do and winning going away, unless you have some innate political talent. Now, certainly, I don't care if he has his fingerprints on it. Bridgegate happened on his watch with his people. That's a huge deal. Facts like, you know, what's happened here where all of a sudden, you know, he campaigns on pension reform and now all of a sudden he says, not on my watch. You know, and Atlantic City, I'll love you one day, I'll fund you, and on the other day, you're on your own. I mean, I can go down the hypocrisy list, believe me. Now all of a sudden he's for assault weapons and whatever. But I still think there's a talent there. Maybe he misses window.
And what might that talent be?
He comes across, or has the ability to come across as authentic. I believe the very thing about Trump that people like is that you don't have to guess where he stands. Christie has that, and I think with more depth than Trump does, but he has that. I just think he has too much baggage.
Well, Richard, you know I love you, but on this one you're wrong, because here's a place where Christie will resonate after New Hampshire. It's called New Jersey, his home state.
I don't even know if he'll resonate there anymore.
And right, that's questionable too. It's over. We've been down this road. Giuliani, I'm betting everything on Florida. I'm the tough guy. Get out of my way. I'll take on the unions. It doesn't work. We've been down this road. Listen, he caught fire a little bit on the addiction issue in New Hampshire. He may meet expectations. He may do a little better. Richard, there's no path to victory for this governor after New Hampshire. Finito. It's over.
And as I said before,
He may be in denial, but it's over.
I was still shocked he had to be talked into coming back to Jersey for the storms. Thank God, for his sake, he did. All right, coming up next, to the Democrats we go. Critics of Hillary Clinton, they have something else to blast her about. This time, those paid speeches she gave to Goldman Sachs and other Wall Street banks. But just because she took their money, does that mean she has to agree with everything they do here? Is she being held to a different standard, or is this a very legitimate criticism? Stay with us.